Your hot tag this week is Full Gear, and wow, did a lot of stuff happen. I'm not going to talk about all of it because it's pay per view, it's huge, whatever. But I will talk about what I liked and what I didn't like. I thought the tag team title match was a good opener. I know a lot of people were kind of disappointed in it. There was some scuttlebutt online that they didn't really like. They didn't think it served Private Party all that well, and I kind of agreed with that. But to me, like they didn't like that it was mostly a backdrop to the Acclaimed continuing to break up. I honestly think that the Acclaimed, since they have such a deep history, that they kind of deserve a spotlight. Like I don't know if they deserve a spotlight for their breakup that's bigger than the World Tag Team Championship, but I do feel like it should. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Like this is one of the first times where you have a tag team that's been a unit for so long as a unit that's breaking up. So I didn't mind all the stuff with Caster and being the selfish one and trying to get it. And they did the thing. You and I were talking about this earlier. They did the thing that I feel like a lot of people don't like. It's very divisive, but I enjoy it when both tag team partners are legal, so they try and pin one another. There's like, what do you do? Like, there's one train of thought that says, well, that team got pinned, so they should lose. The other train of thought is mine is like, well, that the guy pinning the other guy is also from that team, so they should win. Like, I feel like that should trying to take that tack should be rewarded, if not exploited all that often. Like, you don't want that gimmick to get bogged down because, like, oh my god, we've seen this already. But like, I feel every once in a while you should break that out to put over the craftiness of the participants. Like, I feel, yeah. And Rick Knox, even though that he's anytime Rick Knox is in there, you're usually gonna get some wonky officiating. I think by design. I think that he's like the Young Bucks is like go-to guy, and they like just like messing with him. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, if we're gonna be pulling shenanigans that require weird things from the referee, you're our guy. Like, I think they
Yeah.
just like to put him in weird positions like that kind of make him look like a dip. But
Yeah.
but
Um,
that being said, um, they did that spot and it was broken up. They mentioned on commentary how maybe that would just be a no contest, or why is Rick Knox counting? But I don't know. I liked it.
I'll
That's
put it
just
this
me.
way. As a referee, I actually and proof that you never stop learning in this business. Um, I don't know what that call would be as a referee. I don't know that I
Yeah,
would have reacted as well as Rick Knox did because he just went ahead and made a decision.
yeah,
And it worked. Thankfully,
yeah.
it wasn't a botch or anything like that. Like it worked the decision he made. What the rule book would say about this or how this will be determined ruling in the future is probably up to the promoter or the company itself. Um,
This is the kind of
I've
thing
been
that you
doing this
could
for like
build
10
a thing
yeah.
around.
I've
Like you
been doing
could
this
build.
well,
All right, go ahead.
I've been doing this for 10 or 15 years and never had this happen. So,
Yeah,
I don't really, I can't say anybody is the definitive authority on this, um,
yeah.
especially not me. So, yeah, I don't know how this is supposed to go, man. And I really would like a veteran of the business, like maybe this is where Jim Cornette could be helpful. Is like, hey Jim, have you ever seen this happen before? And what is the actual rule involved? Because I bet he has the answer. Um,
And I bet he would give you like a 5 minute tirade on why he hates it first, but he would give you an answer.
oh yeah, for sure, we get an answer out of it. And that's all I want.
Yeah.
Um, so
I mean, this is the kind of thing that you could build an angle around. Like, I mean, had it happen and had the referee make a decision, and kind of in the moment, and then realize he doesn't really know what the consequences of his decision would be, and then have them make a ruling and say, okay, in AEW, this is what happens in this situation. Like, for example, if you wanted to pass it on to a cheap heel tag team and have him count it and have nobody interfere in it and have the referee be kind of scratching his head, but he's like, okay, I guess you guys are the champs now, and have everybody boo the hell out of it. And then the next week on Dynamite, have saying, okay, well, we're going to let the referee's decision stand, but going forward, this is the rule. Like, I could see that being pretty popular to lead
Yeah.
to, a rematch where they, the baby faces who got screwed probably get the belts back. Like, I could see that working as a storyline beat, and then you never have to bring it up again because it has been established.
Yeah.
In fact, if I was running, you know what? I mean, our very first episode of this show, we talked about how we would handle our own feds. Maybe that's something I do like right out the gate. It's like, okay, we're going to do a thing where there's this nebulous rule that nobody really knows the answers to. We're going to parse it out from the beginning so that people know what the rules are. But anyway, yeah. So at the end of the day, Caster's selfishness does him in. He blind tags himself in to Bowens as he was looking to seal the deal. But he's like, no, no, we got to do the thing. We got to do the arrival mic drop. And he's like, okay. After a little hesitancy, Bowens eventually goes and does it. But left just enough time for Bowens to, after hitting the arrival, get taken out of the ring. And then Caster's hung up on the top rope by, I think it was Quen, who grabbed his ankles. And then they hit the gin and juice on Caster and went. And the crowd hated Caster. They despised him.
Oh yeah.
And, I mean, this is the time. Like, I would not be surprised if they had designs on stretching this out for longer. It would not surprise me if they pivot and they do the full breakup and turn from Caster on this week's episode of Dynamite or Collision. Would not surprise me whatsoever because this audience is ready. They are pleading for it. And you know what? That kind of passion is always good, regardless of whether it was the outcome that you wanted. Anytime you get that kind of passion from your audience, that's a good sign. That means that you're connecting with them in some way. And even if it's in a bad way, that means you can course correct and really make them happy. So I kind of hope that's what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of hope they claim breakup.
Yeah,
Um,
it's time.
but I don't really want either of them to end up with Lashley and MVP, and we can talk more about that later. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I feel like one of them's going to end
Yeah.
up with the Hurt Syndicate, and I'm just not really with
Uh,
it.
I think that they'll want to. My feeling and what I would do is I would have Caster turn on Bowens, and try to join the Hurt Syndicate, but then they rescind their offer and be like, "No, we saw how you acted in that four way. We don't. No, this is not about being selfish. This is about working together to dominate and to hurting people. That was clearly not your aim. We rescind the offer," and then they kick the crap out of him. And then he can go back and try to get back with Bowens, but it's too late. He's already crossed that bridge, so he gets really pissy and attacks Bowens, and then they have their feud. That's what I would do. Adding somebody to the Hurt Syndicate. Honestly, my first candidate would be Leo Rush. He already has a history with Lashley. He's getting an edge to his character now. Like his match with Swerve last week was great. Um, I would go with Rush. All right. Next up, oh my gosh, the TBS Championship match. Oh my gosh, this was incredible. Mercedes Monet, since signing with AEW, has had a lot of hits and misses. I think a lot of people probably hold up that Britt Baker match at all in as like
Huge
that's
miss.
not it was a huge miss, but I think people it's kind of like a what have you done for me lately situation. They look at that, they see that as their last major defense, really, and they're like, oh, it paints they paint that entire title reign with that brush when that's not really true. Like she had a great match with Willow to win the thing. She had a really good match with Sheeta. She had a really good, if short, match with Emi Sakura, but like things still weren't clicking. And this is finally where we got the Mercedes Monet that we were hoping that we would eventually get. This was an absolute banger. I just looked it up a few hours ago. Just randomly came across my Blue Sky feed that this was actually the longest women's match in AEW history at just over 19 minutes, which is kind of problematic. But at the same time, we've had a lot of great women's matches in there too. Not every match has to be a marathon, but like this was amazing. These two have remarkable chemistry. I would love to see them run this one back. Monet actually controlled most of the match using mostly like cunning and hit and run tactics. There was a point where it looked like she was trying to, take a count out victory. There were points where she was just hitting meteors and double knees over and over again. Uh, but Statlander kept coming back every time she made a comeback. There were some great near falls and reversals. One that stands out to me was uh, after a while, after several meteors, Stat got wise to it and caught Monet coming off the top rope, just caught her in midair in meteor position and buckle bombed her out of it. Like freaking crazy. There was another counter where Statlander was power bombing or looking to power bomb Monet, but she floated over and like did almost like you know she rolled over her, and then as she was coming down, she grabbed Statlander's neck like a reverse bulldog and hit a neck breaker right onto her knee. It looked it was one of those things you blink and you're like, wait, what just happened? And then they played it on replay. It's like, holy cow, that wasn't a botch. That was on purpose. That looked at closer inspection, like that looked great actually. Like everything just worked. She sold. Statlander sold the offense to the point where it was it was still believable that she was still getting kind of whittled down and whittled down and whittled down. Monet really, really turned up the emotion in this match. Was really just beside herself as the heel who was like, I'm doing everything I can. And I think the most surprising thing wasn't the fact that Camille stayed in the back. It was the fact that Monet won pretty clean. Like she had been working on the knee for the better part of like the last quarter of the match, and so when Chris picked her up to hit her with the Saturday Night's Fever, Monet was frantically, hitting at the knee and even bit it at one point so that she would let her go, and then hit her with a Casadora that sent her throat first into the middle rope and then rolled her up for the clean win. Like, I don't think Stat lost anything by losing here. This was a star-making performance for both of these women, and I really, really want to see them run this back with Stat eventually winning. Like, it just made me more invested in seeing this match again with the other results because I think that would be a real big money match for them, which is considering the build to this match, which I found kind of lacking. Like, sometimes it's just a matter of like, you know, leaning into the strengths. Like, Mercedes isn't like a super great actor. She's not. She's not like a great promo, even really. Like, she has a lot of personality, and but that's mostly in her in ring work. Like, her in ring work is just when she's on, she is you know incomparable. But like you have to get there, and she had the right dance partner. She had the right set of circumstances. Like they just let her go. They trusted her to have a banger match, which she sorely needed, and both of these ladies delivered. Like I was over the moon with this.
I
Um,
agree with you all the way up until the finish.
yeah, I mean,
I
it
honestly
definitely came
thought
out of
that.
nowhere.
Well, I thought the finish sequence was a botch fest. I hate saying that, but whatever that was supposed to be is not what it was. I don't know how it was supposed to go. I mean, even picking it apart, I can't tell you what the move was supposed to be to get from point A to point B in that situation, but I don't think it was right. Especially the way it was presented, that definitely was botched. Um, but until that point, fantastic match. I don't agree with the booking, but I am not going to agree with Mercedes Moné being TBS champion until they take that belt from her, put her at the back of the line, make her wrestle everybody to get back to it, like they do to everyone else.
Yeah.
I, I
That's the thing that really separates AEW and WWE in terms of their champions. Like when you lose, it's more like MMA than traditional wrestling, where like yeah, you don't generally get an immediate rematch. They
no,
make you work for it.
yeah, and I think that like if they had done that in the first place, I would be much higher on Mercedes' overall title run. But the fact that she came in and was basically handed the title immediately doesn't sit right with me because of the depth of talent they have that now has to play second fiddle to her that was working for 4 years before she showed up.
Yeah,
I don't
I mean
like
I
that
can
part.
see that.
I don't,
I you and I can agree to disagree on this.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not staunchly in the other direction, but I lean more in that other direction.
I mean, now,
Um,
was this match a banger? Hell yeah. Do I want him to run
oh
it
yeah,
back? For sure. I just don't agree with the booking on this one. I don't agree with the way Mercedes came into the company that led to this situation that we're in now. I don't like that part. And easiest way to fix that, because I don't like to gripe about something without providing a possible solution to it, is take the title off her, put it on stat, and send Mercedes to the back of the line. Have her wrestle everybody like everybody else, and then we'll, when she gets back here, we'll talk about it. But I
yeah. I
don't
mean,
really.
I would think that a match like this, though, at least raises her stock a little bit,
Oh, no,
right?
no, no! I didn't say. I mean, like I said, I'm not. I thought the match was fantastic. Her abundant level of what the fuck can I do to put her down? It was
Yeah.
obvious. Like
Oh my
she was
gosh, it was
screaming into the
so good.
ether because
You
she
know what it
was just
reminded
like,
me of?
I
It
can't beat
reminded
her.
it reminded me of her Iron match with Bailey in NXT,
Yeah, a little
where it was
bit.
like it was just that desperation there. Like
Yeah,
it gave me that feeling again. It
that
was great.
desperation. What's it going to take to beat her? But then when they went into the process, like she's got her in the position for a Saturday Night Fever. She gets she starts hitting her leg with these very weak looking punches and then bites her, and then
I like the biting, honestly.
somehow
I
that
thought that
makes
was fun.
Statlander, clothesline herself on the middle rope, which then leads to a roll up that's not really a roll up. Was more like throwing her own legs over the back of her head so that they could just get this over with. All the way up until that point, I was like, this match is great. And it may have, in my mind, I'm not going to give a star number to this because I don't do that. But in my mind, that finishing sequence probably docked them a half a star. But that
But
doesn't but that doesn't
counter
mean it wasn't a 4 star match or a three and a half
counterpoint,
or a 4.5. I mean,
counterpoint. Doesn't the botch finish actually make you want to see them run it back again even more though?
no, no.
To give it a proper
I
end?
don't I don't have that in me in my head that we messed it up the first time, so let's do it again. Because I'm very much not a let's give him a chance to screw it up again person. However, because of how good the match was before that point, yes, I want to see him run it back. I thought it was a good, like I said, I'm not here to say these women are terrible wrestlers or this is
Oh, oh, I'm not
this was a
accusing you
crap
of
match.
that.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not here for any of that. They're both great. This was a great match that proved that Mercedes can go the way they pay her to go, and it proved that Stat is just continuing on her complete and total, cycle of I'm a badass and I'm great in the
Yeah.
ring, and that's just what it is. So she is. I mean, but this was. I thought the match was good up until that point. I didn't agree with the booking decision, and I don't think it. I'm not mad at it because the heel won. I'm mad at it because I would like Mercedes to have earned it like everybody else did. Everybody that's got a championship in that company went through months of something, or even years in some cases, to get to the point where they're at. Let's take a look at Mariah May. That Tony Storm story ran for like 6 months, where all she could do was, clap for the champ without being a challenger at all. And then suddenly we get, the flip turn, and now she's champ. If they had done the same type of thing with Mercedes, I don't think I'd be upset about her being champion at all. But I'm very much a person who is like, don't hire people from outside the company when you can promote from within. And
So
they definitely have a talent level to promote from within without having hired her in the first place. They have hired her. That's already done and said. I can't say anything else about it. So maybe make her operate like the rest of them do.
okay. What do you say about the Motor City Machine Guns who immediately got the tag belts?
They've been in the business 20 years longer than she has, and they're legendary tag team.
Yeah,
So there's a
but
little
come
bit of a
on.
difference
Like
either
she's
ways.
been on the WWE. She had a WrestleMania like huge moment, main event of night one of that. Like she's had she's definitely paid her dues elsewhere in the business on a much greater stage than even the Machine Guns, really. Most of their work was in Japan and in TNA. So what's really the difference? And she's in a Star Wars show. Like I don't I just
Okay,
I
okay. Look,
feel
look. I'm not trying to be the negative guy, but she's the worst part of a very good Star Wars show. So, um,
yeah.
but my point in this is, okay, okay. Here's the difference. I know the difference. Okay, WWE's
Right.
tag team division kind of sucks. AEW's women's division decidedly does not suck.
True. That is true.
Okay, the
They may
WWE
not
tag team
always know what
division
to do with
needed,
their division,
yeah, the
but
tag team division needed this shakeup. The women's division had a long line of people who were next in line before they just were like, oh, hey, we're going to make her the highest paid woman in wrestling. And she's getting the women's mid card title without fighting for it, basically. Um, I didn't like that part. I mean, I can palate it a lot better than her being the world champion off the bat. I would have been heated if they had done that.
yeah. Although
But
I do say that if you were to have this TV, if you were to switch the belts here, I still say that her reign is what would be the world women's title would be better than Mariah May's title reign so far.
we'll
Like
talk about that here in a minute because I think it took a nice turn.
it took a
Um,
nice turn, but it took 3 4 months to get there.
well, it took 6 months to get there from Tony being timeless and being the worst thing in AEW to the best thing in AEW, all in that 6 month period. I mean, that's
Tony,
Tony
I
likes
miss
to do
Tony
his.
so
I do
much.
too. I
Oh
do too. Now
God,
here's my final bit on it. Okay, um, she won that title from Julia, right?
she won it from Willow,
Who won it from Julia
who won it from Julia. Julia had to move the belt because she was injured.
because she was
I
injured.
have no clue whether the belt was even going to be on the line initially because they had to move the belt.
Yeah,
So for all we know, because we're not in those meetings, maybe the title was never even on the line in the first place in the original drafts of those plans, but because they moved the title over to Willow and they immediately wanted to put Willow against Monet because of the injury that was unfortunately caused the year prior, which is,
yeah.
I mean, honestly, that was the story that made the most sense for her first match. And then they
Oh yeah,
made
yeah.
the
I agree.
decision
They made
afterward.
the right decision with the first feud.
I I don't know whether the plan was to put the belt on her initially at all, and that maybe the Julia Hart injury messed things up or not, and then they pivoted. I don't know.
Yeah.
It
Now
could be
see,
either way.
if that's the case, then fine. If she exerted some kind of creative control to wrest this belt away from people who are more deserving of it than she is, then that's an issue. Will
I
we
don't
ever know
know.
the
Like
answer? Will we ever know the answer to that question? Probably not. Unless somebody like
it's
Willow or Julia says this is
yeah.
what happened, but they're too classy. They're not going to do
Yeah,
that. So
it's really difficult to tell too because like on the one hand, you know, the way Mercedes left WWE was very much mired in controversy. Some people, there are a lot of people with big opinions about that. WWE certainly had its opinion, its unprofessional way of handling that, like just denouncing them on air. Like
Yeah.
that sucked. Like I don't even know why Naomi ever went back after that. But like if somebody did that to me when all I was doing was standing up for myself and what to me I take those ladies' side on this one because like especially considering the history of the WWE women's tag belts being chronically overlooked and chronically devalued. Yeah, I get where they were coming from. I totally, and that's not even the first time they did that to the then Sasha Banks. Like they moved the belts over to Iconic 6 weeks after they became the first champions for no reason, zero reason. They were super, they lobbied for the belts creation. They lobbied to be the first champions to put them on the map and to, travel across all three brands to defend them and this, that, the other thing. They had one successful title defense in NXT, and then they lose the belts at WrestleMania. And then they pull this crap with her and Naomi a few years later. Yeah, I would be annoyed too. I would be feel disrespected too. I would feel lied to as well. So yeah, go do your thing, girl. But like at the same time, does standing up for yourself really mean that you're a backstage politic or not? Does it mean that you have a huge inflated ego or not? From the stuff that she posts and other people post of her backstage in AEW, how she interacts with other people, she seems like she's really cool. Like really like giving like who was it she gave a bottle of tequila to? Like I think it was Dax. Like I mean, she seems like she's trying to ingratiate herself with the locker room, not divide it up for her own betterment or her own advantage. So that's only what we see though. We don't see what we don't see.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's tough to parse out. Like you said, unless a bunch of corroborating interviews come out probably long after the fact to to parse out what exactly did happen or something close to it, then we'll probably never know.
Yeah.
But for me, like I want to give her the benefit of the doubt.
I would try to give her more of, I mean, I do. I don't think she's a terrible person or a terrible wrestler. I I definitely would love them to stop piping in that CEO chant one day to see how big it actually is. Because
I
you
mean, I
can
think it
never
works as a
tell.
heel.
You can, well, I mean,
I think it
of
works
course
as
it
a
does,
heel.
but you can never tell. And I'm sorry, man, but I need like some kind of measurable metric for your highest paid superstars who I feel like you are
Yeah.
definitely underusing. Her and Okada, bro, like book them better.
I mean, she's getting TV time every week. I'd say they're getting
Yeah,
their money's worth out of her.
but they're definitely
Okada
not out of
is here
Okada.
and there
That's
though.
yeah.
But that may be if he's not. I don't think he lives stateside.
I don't think he does either, and I
So,
think giving him such a ridiculous contract to not live over here and be working every week is bad move.
well, I mean, they did the similar thing with Osprey so that he could be at home in England with his family. So
He's there every damn week though, so
he is
like,
there.
and
He
he's
is there
doing
every
way
week.
more than just saying "ha ha ha, bitch." I mean, like
No, he's
it
saying
was.
bruv.
Yeah, okay, of course, but 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 yeah, I feel like there needs to be way more Okada for like the reports of his high level contract and being like one of the highest paid guys. I'm like, you brought over the Rainmaker and you're doing like nothing with the guy.
Well, I mean, the C
I mean,
two
now
is
we're going to change the but we're going to
yeah,
talk about how that's going to change. But
yeah. That's
um,
going to be a major point of discussion
thank
here in a
God,
little bit. Um,
you know,
but yeah, moving on.
yeah,
Kyle Fletcher versus Will Osprey. Uh, Another freaking banger, classic out of Will Osprey. The guy, I mean, in my opinion, Brian Danielson is I think probably the best to ever do it. But Will Osprey is very close, at the very least, of active wrestlers. Man, like I don't think it's possible for Will Osprey to have a 3-star match at this point.
No.
Like that's how good the dude
Maybe
is.
if he had a tag match. Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, but I'm talking singles here. Like
Yeah.
even then, like he usually lifts up those tags anyway. But like Fletcher's a fantastic wrestler. Osprey always makes his opponents look great, but the latter went way out of his way to make the former look good. Like Fletcher looked like absolute, just savant,
Yeah.
absolute wrestling savant here. Lots and lots of counters, which is logical. They build them up that they've known each other so well for ages, United Empire and all that stuff. So that makes sense. I know a lot of people, don't like the back and forth, the too choreographed nature of it. But like in this case, I mean, what else would you do with guys who have been best friends for years? Um, Fletcher targeted the taped up neck and shoulder of Osprey, who was, uh, he came to the ring in Punisher themed gear, and unlike most people who wear Punisher themed gear, he probably gets the character. Uh,
Yeah.
he At one point, Fletcher escaped a Stormbreaker attempt on the apron and hit Osprey with a tombstone piledriver, jumping off the ring apron onto the steel steps that were set up there, and it was just it was over from there. Like it wasn't immediately over, but at that point, that's Osprey was done. Like he didn't get any significant offense for the next 3 or 4 minutes. Like it was just Fletcher just dominating him, just keep trying to break him down. Osprey fighting as best he could, but he had no strength left. Even another hidden blade, he couldn't launch himself. Fletcher just like stood there and just no sold it. Lots of strikes, a gnarly looking kneeling pile driver, and a top rope brainbuster later. And Fletcher gets the clean win over Will Osprey. Now, this is going to lead into what I feel was less good, or that I liked less, I guess I should say. And it's touching on something you brought up just a few minutes ago. The wrestling being good, but the results being questionable.
Mhm.
I hated, I hated that Osprey lost clean here. There was no shenanigans, no nothing. Like I know that you're trying to make Kyle Fletcher, and yeah, you know what? You'll go ahead and do it. But like, I don't know, where do you go from here? Like, yeah, you've got them. Obviously, we'll talk about the C2, and they're both in that. Well, spoilers, but like, I don't know where you go from here with that. It's like Fletcher already beat him, clean as a sheet. Like, this is Will Osprey, best wrestler in the world, right? And he's had several big high profile losses in a row. Like he's not even been in the company a year, and he's already being kind of relegated to the guy that puts other people over. Like I don't know if I like that. Like I know I'm a bias because I'm a really big Will Osprey fan, but like, I don't like it. And that was like a theme running through the whole thing. Like Mercedes winning, it didn't bother me too much, but like Jay White gets a second straight clean win over Hangman Page. Hated that. Match was good. Match was solid psychologically. Match was creative in a few places,
That's
like really creative.
awesome.
But like Jay White still wins clean. What the heck are you doing? And then that leads into the end of the match, the end of the show angle too, where it doesn't even make sense that Paige is involved. We'll get to it later. Doesn't even make sense for Paige to be involved since like he's had two really big high profile losses after really like he technically speaking for the record he didn't really even beat Swerve Strickland at All Out because it was a lights out match. It doesn't count towards the record. So really, what is Page being doing inserted into the biggest angle in the show when he's very clearly being portrayed as kind of a loser? Don't get it. Don't like it. Don't get it. Um, I just he was made to look like a post match angles be damned. The main character of AEW was made to look like an absolute doofus again. he's Rodney Dangerfield. He just gets no
Okay.
respect.
Question.
Yeah.
Would it make sense if we are driving Hangman through a losing streak to make him even more unhinged?
I mean, I the way I look at this is like they're making him pay for his sins, and be eventually get to that point where he hits rock bottom and he's self-reflective again. But we've already done this. We've already done this with him, and honestly, uh, maybe maybe this is me being a little biased here because like I like Jay White all right, but he's not my dude, and I kind of hate seeing that guy beat my guy. Like I know it's kayfabe and I'm being a mark and I get it, but like, what's so fucking special about Jay White? He's not the main character of this show.
Well, I would
Like
argue that right now neither is Hangman. So
his story, his is, I mean, it hits different with every person individually, and I know that he comes and goes, but like the through line is his mental illness that I really relate to personally. So to me, he's always going to be the main character, and I know that that's the way it is for a lot of people. Probably not most. Being realistic, I don't assume everybody feels the same way I do, but I can only speak for myself, and that's myself. I'm like, what's the point of having Jay White beat him twice in a row clean? Like, you're not going to put the belt on Jay White.
well,
You know you're not going to. You know you're not going to do it. He's not going to beat Jon Moxley. Darby Allin's going to beat Jon Moxley. So what are we even doing
see, I don't agree with that. I
here?
don't.
No, it's going to
I
happen.
don't know that Darby Allin's going to beat Jon Moxley.
He will. As soon as they said you'll never be world champion, it was written in stone.
I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that at all because cards subject to change. So I don't believe that at all. Nothing
Unless he
ever
dies
is.
on Mount Everest when he goes up. And that's another thing.
You tell
Jay
me.
Jay
Hold on.
White Jay White was the guy who broke Darby Allin's foot. He carried around Sting's bat as a trophy. And all of that just completely forgotten. He comes back from injury. Oh, I'm a good guy. People like me now. Darby hasn't said crap about it. Like, I thought this was the place where continuity was supposed to matter.
I mean, once you have so many running thread lines, I mean, it's kind of hard to keep continuity in some cases, especially when it has to be the same people interacting over and over again. But I don't. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I do not. I 100% do not believe Darby Allin is going to beat Jon Moxley because I 100% believe. I 100% believe, like in my soul, that Tony Khan is going to drag this out until he can have Eddie Kingston back, and Eddie Kingston is going to beat Jon Moxley.
I would accept that, but
I think
I
everybody
think
would.
it's going to be Darby, and then he immediately drops it to Christian when he cashes in.
I mean, that's
I don't
possible.
think they have. I don't
They
think
got
they
to
have
do.
a hold it for
They need to
long.
do something with that damn contract soon. I was really hoping it was going to be last night, but since it's not,
Yeah,
they got
but
to.
yeah, and other things like MJF was the right guy to go over Roddy Strong, but like, where was the Kingdom? Where was the Undisputed Kingdom throughout that whole thing?
They're not
Why were
heels
they
anymore.
not? Why were they not ringside? It wasn't a Continental title match. Where were they? Why did they come in late after his leg had already been Pillmanized? What is this? Like, I also didn't like the TNT title spot. Like, the match was good and the right guy went over for the right reasons, but they put him right after Fletcher and Osprey. Like, oh my lord! Like, what
Yeah,
are we even doing?
they had a job ahead of them to get the crowd back into it, but I think they did it good. I thought it was a great match. Yeah,
They
I
had them by the end. They
and this
absolutely had
yeah,
them by the end.
and this one I agree with the booking also, along with thinking it was a great match. But really, the way it was booked was just a cherry on top because in this match, I went from being a Jack Perry hater to a Jack Perry appreciator.
Yeah,
And
he's got this nihilist Raven
it all
thing
made sense to me in
good
this
now. Yeah,
match because we had white meat. I mean, okay, he's not maybe he's a dark meat baby face, if
Yeah,
you want to call Daniel Garcia that.
yeah, he's juicy.
But
He's
but we
yeah,
had a we had a like a Dreamer Raven thing going on here,
yeah,
that's where it made it click in my head. I was like, oh, this is like Dreamer Raven. Like this guy is
yeah,
just a nihilist who doesn't give a shit about anything, and this guy over here is chasing after this thing that he cares about very very much, and this other guy doesn't give a shit about it at all.
yeah,
And once it clicked, I was like, okay. And then the match was just good, man.
yeah. The
It
match
was
was
just
good.
good.
It was a little slow going in the beginning, but by the end, man, like that cross-legged pile driver, oof,
God, dude,
that
yeah,
was
that hook pile
tasty.
driver, I was just like, Jesus Christ,
And then
man.
he won with the Dragon Tamer, which he hadn't used. I don't think he'd used it since the Continental Classic when he kept getting hooked his head hooked from behind when he leaned back so far.
Yeah,
And he got like the immediate tap after he did that too. Like it
yeah.
was it was really the
They were
Buffalo
basically
represent.
chanting lean back whenever
Yeah,
he had him in that sharpshooter, and
yeah.
everybody like they were basically lean back.
Every single person in that audience was Fat Joe from about
Yeah,
2007. Lean
lean back,
back, lean
lean
back.
back.
So yeah, no, I mean that, but like man, they did no favors putting it in that spot. They got him
Oh
back,
no,
but like, oof,
yeah,
it was, yeah, it was touch and go there. I was worried that it wasn't gonna do all that well because of the timing of it and the placement of it. So like,
yeah,
there were a lot of booking decisions that I felt were the wrestling never let me down. The wrestling itself, the art form that I love, did not let me down because it's still an AEW pay per view. So between those ropes, everything was good to great, and in one or two cases, fantastic. But yeah, yeah, a lot of the extraneous stuff, it
yeah.
left me really cold. And that brings us to the world title match, the main event between Orange Cassidy and John Moxley. Um, Again, this match was excellently wrestled. Psychology was great. It was a lot. It reminded me a lot of their last fight, actually, over the international title with Cassidy knowing he had to get things going early and often. But then Mox eventually shut him down, forced him to take a bloody beating for the majority of the match. I'm not really a big fan of the way Mox actually goes about wrestling sometimes. He just looks really wonky and but at least he's believable with his character, like I mean
Yeah,
he believes it's real, so you believe it's real.
right.
uh, uh I think he takes his character a tad too seriously, personally, because like he's the most protected guy on the roster, and it's not a bad thing in and of itself. You want the guy that you consider to be your biggest star and your biggest ace to look consistently good, but like I feel that years of him being put in a position where he's this big monster, tough guy that I mean, how many orange punches did he take in this match?
So
Like
many.
so many. Like
Oh,
you know, it's just. I granted, he's the only guy that works on, but that's the problem is that there's a guy that works for, and his name is John Moxley, and it's like I don't know if this being this big bad monster really works with being the cowardly heel that has all his cronies do his dirty work at the same time. I don't really know that those two really mix all that well. So like I don't know, like his presentation doesn't really hit with me, and being a four-time champion when nobody else that's still in the company anyway has won the world title any more than once doesn't really sit well with me. You're creeping up on John Cena syndrome there, but This match, it actually kind of worked because Cassidy is another one of those guys. He's really sympathetic when he takes a kicking, uh, and he just keeps coming back, blood pouring down his face. Like it was, he just keeps on trucking there and wears, picks his spots and wears down Moxley a little bit by little bit. Like again, like their last match. Only this had way more outside shenanigans because the BCC were mostly hands off, whereas the Death Riders certainly are not. Uh, Eventually, Cassidy hits a couple of orange punches and a beach break for a close 2 count. But that's the cue for Pac and Claudio to join Marina Shafir at ringside. They just threaten to get involved, but that gets Ishii and Kyle O'Reilly and Rocky Romero to show up. Uh, Eventually, Rocky Romero gets on the top rope and jumps onto everybody on the outside before they can actually interfere in the match physically. But that distraction allows Shafir to get in the ring and threaten with the briefcase to hit Orange Cassidy. But finally, there's a woman that can equalize Shafir so that we don't have to feel bad that she's getting her butt kicked. When Willow Nightingale makes a return from injury, aligned with her conglomeration teammates, and just destroys Shafir. Just completely takes her out of the equation. They brawl on the outside for a while. But the briefcase that supposedly holds the world title belt is left in the ring. So Cassie, already, having taken a drubbing and being on the receiving end of, chicanery from, it does. It's not bad when a babyface cheats as long as they've been the victim of cheating earlier in the match, right? I mean, that's just wrestling logic 101. So he takes the case and just blasts Mox with it in the face. It reminded me of one of those old Shane McMahon leaping chair shots. Like it was just like right in the face. Uh, and the ref turns around just in time to see him for him to not see the shot with the case, but in time to make just the closest near fall. Like this match was so well done, I actually bought in for a moment and thought, oh my gosh, are they actually going to do this even after a 42-day reign? And they didn't do that. But it made me believe, and that's the secret sauce, right? Is making you believe.
Yeah.
Cassie removes the elbow pad to give him one last orange punch, only for Mox to grab the referee to obstruct his vision so that Yuta could hit Cassie with the Busaiku knee because he was the one Death Rider that wasn't there, so you knew he was coming. And then one Death Rider double underhook DDT, the move, not the stable. Later, and it's over. But of course, it's not over because here we go. Bear with me because there's a lot of post-match shenanigans attached to this. So I'm just going to try and run it down, and hopefully it all makes some kind of chronological sense. So after the bell, Yuta and Mox get a hold of some like Windex or something. It's in a spray bottle that doesn't have a top on it. It's blue, so I assume Windex, window cleaner, and they like pour it like down his throat, which is just awful. Just ugh.
Okay.
But then
Right here, they said that that's the stuff they use to clean the ring up with, like for the blood spots and stuff. So that would make it degreaser,
okay,
which is so much
well,
worse than index.
oh, it would also have an antiseptic agent to it as well if you're talking about blood.
Yeah.
So
So much worse than
disgusting
index.
and gross. I
Yes.
imagine that it's gimmicked. I imagine
I
that
hope
it's
so.
water or soda that they tinted blue
Blued
or
up.
whatever.
Yeah.
But like, oh my
Uh,
god,
yeah.
it just. But then of all people, Hangman Adam Page comes down to the ring with the chair and just uh, decks Yuto in the ribs with it, and then he and Mox have this really intense stare down, which the crowd was actually kind of hyped for, even though they didn't really know what was going on. And then you added further not knowing what was going on too when Christian took that opportunity. Christian Cage came out and hit the kill switch on him, and then it looked like he and Hangman might have like some words, but then Hangman just kind of hobbles off, still selling the leg from the earlier match, and just kind of leaves him there. And so it looks like he's about to sign the contract when Jay White comes in and interrupts that, even though he must have walked right past Hangman Page. So I don't know why Page didn't get involved there.
Right.
But but that let all that stuff let Mox and the Death Riders escape to the parking lot, and we're still not done because they were forced to steal a car when their truck was T-boned by Darby Allin to end the show. Like, and this was, I don't know if it was Darby actually in there. He was bleeding when he finally showed up. So, I mean, I don't know if that was to sell it or if he actually did his own stunt. But they actually T-boned this car at like full speed.
Yeah, that shit was
They
going fast.
destroyed two cars
Yeah, they definitely
for
destroyed both
this
of those
one
cars.
angle.
Yeah.
That's what I was referring to earlier about aren't we lucky that we have billionaires who are willing to spend obscene amounts of money just to total cars to further angles.
You're right.
But yeah, like it was Darby Allin is the guy who is the final shot that the camera has, and he's bleeding, and he's taking his skateboard to the windshield of the truck that they had all come in that they had to evacuate from. Like it was madness. It was absolute way overbooked madness. But what I will say in its favor is that it was the first time that we've kind of finally, even though Moxley won, seen the Death Riders on the run and starting to reap what they've sown. Like they've caused all this damage and chaos and horrendous violence all throughout. And now I can't remember who said it. It was somebody on my Blue Sky feed, but they put it really succinctly. They said it's nice to see them being the hunted and not the hunters after all this time. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you know what? I mean, this is like their endgame. This is what they wanted, right? And now they're running like scalded dogs. So I mean, to me, it was still way, way overbooked. And you could tell that the live audience had no clue what was going on. Like this was an extended period of time. It was like 7 or 8 minutes after the match actually ended that all this stuff went down. But honestly, to the point that they were making, it's like, yeah, look at all this madness that you've caused by your actions in over the past 3 or 4 months now, and this is the world that you've now created, Death Riders, and you're eventually gonna get yours from it. And that, if that's the takeaway, I'm more okay with it than I normally would be
Mm-hmm.
because this is the first time that we've actually seen the Death Riders scared of anything. And to be fair, rightfully so. Darby Allin's a maniac, but like,
Yeah.
I think that I think that it was a little overbooked, but and I have no idea why. Like again, like why is Page in this? He shouldn't be sniffing the world title with all the losses he's been taking. But it almost seems like they're headed for a 4-way with Mox, Christian Cage, Hangman, and Jay White at this point. Like that seems to be where they're going with this. And I'm like, why is Page here? He doesn't deserve to be in it
Well,
from like a win-loss standpoint. He
what
just
I kind
doesn't.
of hope, what I kind of hope is that it's they're booking this like more people are getting tired of this shit.
Yeah,
Like it's not just Orange Cassidy and the conglomeration and Darby anymore.
yeah,
Now Hangman's like, you know what? I love this place, and you're trying to fuck it up.
yeah. I mean, I
No,
can see him going either way with it though. Like
yeah.
I
I
can
mean,
see like he hates
time will
Moxley.
tell.
History shows that he and Moxley do not care for one another. And Hangman is one of the only guys to beat Moxley. I think he's the only one in AEW to beat him by submission when he in that Texas Death Match where he wrapped the chain around and hanged him over the side of the ring with it.
Yeah.
I think he's the only one who can claim that. He's certainly one of the only ones who can claim to have beaten Moxley in one-on-one action of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a really short list in AEW. Um, and but and but I can see him going either way because like yeah, he loves AEW maybe more than anybody else, but AEW in his eyes kind of turned on him and despite his love for it. So maybe that's another thing he wants to watch burn. So I could see him eventually going either way. I couldn't see him joining the Death Riders, but I could definitely see him stepping aside and abstaining when he could help,
Yeah.
given the character that he has now. But I could see it going the other way too, if that's how they want to handle his redemption. I could see it going either way with that, and that's what makes me intrigued about it. But he shouldn't be in a world title match. Like the dude is, he's not won a high profile match since making it to the finals of the Owen.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But I
I don't
mean,
know.
overall, the match, Full Gear was very strange. Like all the wrestling was, like I said, good to fantastic in terms of quality. But like I had a lot of issues with a lot of the booking decisions outside of the actual wrestling
Um,
of it.
the only thing I did, okay, so like I didn't feel like this was as good as a normal AEW pay per view is.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the general consensus. I see a lot of love for it, but I'm also only looking at it on Blue Sky and as
Well, don't look
positive
on
and
Twitter because that is
I'm not even going
absolutely
to open Twitter.
unanimously
Okay, like
bad.
I will not say a whole lot of bad things about Blue Sky, except that guys, I love the super positive environment, but let's not approach toxic positivity, please. Things do have problems, and we are allowed not to like things
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
But
That
I
being said, I
I
don't think
I
that we
didn't
should.
dislike I didn't dislike this. I didn't dislike this pay per view. I just didn't think it was as good as other pay per views,
Yeah.
especially recent other AEW pay per views that have been banger.
Yeah.
Like this one, I thought
Yeah.
it was a good pay per view. I just didn't think it was as good. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I think that's fair.
I'm not gonna give all the love to the Bobby Lashley and Swerve match as a bunch of other people did because I thought it was boring as hell.
I
Um,
mean, I to me, Swerve. We didn't talk about it, but
yeah.
to me, Swerve is still the guy that they chose over Hangman, even after all that Swerve did to him. And Swerve has never apologized. He's never, to me, anytime, I don't think much of Lashley. I think he's a charisma black hole, and you know, he starts sweating profusely inside of a minute. And like,
Oh God, yeah, dude, he
but
was so sweaty for somebody in such good
yeah,
shape. Uh,
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's a freak athlete. There are certain things that he does that are fine, and having MVP as a mouthpiece will only do him favors. But
mhm.
to me, I'm not a big Bobby Lashley fan. That said, it was nice to see Swerve get stomped for me personally, since I'm such a Hanger fan. Like
Uh,
like
you're
it's
not
like
just a
no,
Hager fan. You're kind
this
of a
is
Swerve hater.
I am a little I will give the man his props. Like I love Swerve the wrestler. I hate Swerve the character.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I don't really
You
like
know,
either, but I love the
like
wrestler. So
I want it's like I want justice. I want justice. I'm a
his
justice
house
fueled
getting burned
person.
down wasn't enough. And house
No,
getting burned down and then beaten in the subsequent match
no,
wasn't
because he
enough.
never admitted anything that he did was wrong.
Okay. So this you don't want justice. You want a confession.
Yes, yes, I want him to admit that what he did
You
was
want
wrong. That is
amends.
just. That is right. That is what is deserved.
But yeah, I mean, other than those couple of things, like I really just didn't like this Lashley match, man, and I really
No, I can see that.
didn't think that the pay per view was as like it wasn't a bad pay per view, just wasn't as good as the last few AEW pay per views I've watched. So
I mean, that's a high bar. Like
it's a
AEW
pretty
hasn't
yeah. They can't
AEW
always
has
beat
not had a
villains.
single bad one. They've had
Yeah,
some hit and miss ones, but there's not been a single AEW pay per view that has been
it is
outright bad.
it is
Not a
hard to
single one.
keep up that level of output. It really is.
Yeah.
And even this is not that far out of their level of output. It's just not
No.
as good. So,
Yeah.
if they have a lull for a month as we head into World's End, where we're going to get some more banger matches and like the C2 end and all that, and going into the C2, which is like my favorite part of the year because this is the
Oh my
best
gosh, I can't wait
matches.
for it.
This
I'm
is the
so
best
I'm so
matches all
pumped.
year long. I'm so pumped for this. But yeah, if this is the little bit of a lull, like the calm before the storm, as it were, as we wrap up the year, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a hell of a lot to talk about when we come back after our break.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was easily an A+ show. But all the other shows have been like
You have to
S,
you have
like
to
S.
compare it
They've been
twice. You
S
have to
tier,
compare. Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
so. This
It
just being an A+ is not as good as the rest of them because they've been S tier, but
yeah, you have
it's
to
not
look
bad.
at it on its own merits and in relation to its forebears,
Yes, exactly,
you know.
exactly. So,
So
on its own merits, it was a good show. I'm not really complaining about that at all. I enjoyed it. I even am not a huge fan of like the Mariah May and Mina
Shirakawa.
Shirakawa. Yeah,
Yeah.
I always want to pronounce her name differently, and I always try not to mispronounce it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but but
Somebody's name.
me,
You should get it
yeah,
right. Yeah.
Mina
I get it.
and Mariah, I wasn't really into it because I mean I know I'm a dude. I don't have a dog in this fight, but my wife super doesn't like the whole booby shaking thing. And
Yeah.
she just doesn't like seeing women objectify themselves or be objectified on TV. That's just what it is. And I'm okay
I
with that.
think
I understand it. But
yeah.
this, I think once she actually gets to view it, because she hasn't got to see the pay-per-view yet, but I think once she gets to view it, well, she'll like this too. Because this was a
Yeah.
great turn. I mean, we
Yeah.
got super violence. I don't know if Mina has got a broken jaw or missing a tooth or what,
I think she
but
might have bit her tongue
I don't know what happened, man.
because
I also thought maybe I don't know.
I saw a picture of her uh a few hours ago. Somebody posted on Blue Sky. She was smiling and she had her all her teeth, but she had
Okay.
an enormous goose egg on her head.
Dude,
Like
they
she must have
bounced
hit.
off that table, hit the second table, went through it,
Oof,
and hit their heads on the concrete.
yeah,
Their
like
heads hit the concrete for sure.
so. I'm wondering if maybe she bit the inside of her lip or her tongue or something like that because her teeth seemed fine.
I
But
couldn't really tell because she was kind of covering up with her lips and like rolling her
yeah,
tongue around and stuff. And like I thought
yeah,
maybe she had like a stage blood capsule in there or something, and that's what she wiped on Mariah. But then
maybe
I heard other and that's like she was rolling it around her mouth. And that's why her mouth was making all those weird movements. But if she bit her tongue or lost a tooth or broke her jaw, that would explain that in one of three ways. If she bit her tongue though, that would provide the blood
yeah.
and not have done as near a bad a damage to her as like jaw or tooth.
And oddly enough, I guess even if she did break her jaw, that wouldn't even be the first time. Apparently, a few years ago in Stardom, she I don't know, she took something wrong or landed wrong or whatever, and yeah, she broke her jaw.
Oh wow.
So like, girl, yeah, I mean, she plays this, I mean, she was a former Gravure model, and she plays that up as part of her character. But that girl's tough.
She is pretty
Like,
tough. I mean, after
she is
that bump,
tough.
and she got up from that bump, and I mean, it was
Yeah,
that shit was nasty. I mean, we had a total like I am the table, regular
yeah,
table bump, and Baja Mania level head crash, like
yeah.
all in one swift
Oof.
motion. And I
Yeah.
don't think that
Also,
was their fault at all. I think whoever set up those
no,
tables should have put them a couple feet out because they were right up butted against the thing. And you got to understand if you're going to spear somebody off the stage at any
you're
angle,
covering
you're going
distance.
a
Yeah,
couple of feet out at least. Those tables should not have been that close to the stage. This probably wouldn't have happened if they had been moved out a foot or whatever. Hindsight's 2020. I'm not going to seek out that person who did that's name to try to out them to the public or anything like that. But hey, bro, if you're listening, next time
yeah.
do better, please. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would have. I wonder if that would have been better served rehearsing with Crash Mat beforehand
Definitely would have.
to
It would
see
have
what
been better
kind of.
served having a crash match.
Yeah,
Bro, I don't think any of us would have been mad at it, would you? I
nope,
wouldn't
I
have.
wouldn't have. No, I
So,
would have kind of like been like, why is there a Crash Mat there? Oh, that's why.
oh, that's why. Yeah, but we're keeping our wrestlers safe.
Yeah,
So yeah, of course there's a
yes.
crash pad.
Also,
You
but
know,
before it goes unmentioned, I thought her kick of that champagne bottle was
dude,
nice.
she did that in
That was
5-inch
amazing.
platforms. That was crazy as fuck. She
That was
roundhouse kicked that shit out of her hand with like
that
five
was
inch
so
platform shoes
impressive.
on. I
That
was
was so
impressed.
impressive.
Yeah, I was a
Yeah,
little impressed.
like for people who think that she's only about the the character and not about the in ring. That girl, I couldn't do what she just did.
Yeah, I
No
couldn't do
way.
that either. Not
I
now.
couldn't do that with that accuracy and that force and that. I mean, granted, it was a gimmick bottle, but she shattered it on contact.
Yeah.
That wasn't
I
from
don't know
it
if they planned
falling
that
on
either because
the
Mariah looked.
stage. But like that girl, oof, I wouldn't want to be on the end of that kick. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, it was crazy. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see where this goes now, especially with that
yeah, yeah.
gnarly
It's
crash.
it's we've been treading water
It
to
has been.
get to
It
this
has been.
point because she had dates in Japan probably that she
Yeah.
needed. She probably had stardom dates that she needed to fulfill her commitments on,
You
and
know what though?
that's fine, but unfortunate, but fine. Like,
Yeah. Now,
I mean,
before we move to the Caught in the Ring segment, I
mhm.
have to issue a bit of an apology to someone.
I think I know where this is going.
I hope you do, but if you don't, this might be out of left field for you. So I'm going to issue a bit of an apology. Well, a couple of different people, actually. First of all, sorry, Jack Perry, for not getting your character before now and not really understanding what was going on there. But I enjoyed it. So cool. You changed my mind. And I'm always open to have my mind changed. My second thing, though, is something that didn't actually happen on the pay per view this week.
Yep.
Um, and it's only I did watch Rampage, so it's only something I've seen clips of. All right. But
Right.
I griped last week when we were talking about Mina and Harley and how Harley
Yeah.
only was shaking her tits and Mina's doing the same thing. And now I kind of understand why Harley was shaking her tits, though. Because now, after the third week of this thing happening, I've realized that Harley is working a gimmick infringement angle.
Yeah.
And so the cat paint and all that stuff and making fun of Thunder Rosa was gimmick infringement on Thunder Rosa. And then she shook her boobs to have gimmick infringement on Mina because she breaks these gimmicks down to their bare, barest thing. You
Yeah.
know, Harley Graham this week was fucking
Amazing.
hilarious. Okay. God
Amazing.
damn it.
This is
Okay.
not what
So
I thought you
I'm
were going to
sorry.
talk about. It's not what I thought you were going to talk about, but I'm glad to talk
I've
about it
only
because
saw the
she's
clips of it because, like I
hilarious.
said, I haven't seen Rampage, but I always think the gimmick infringement things are funny. Like
Yeah.
when Mizdow was doing it, or
Oh,
when Sandow was doing just
classic.
everybody's gimmicks. Like I
Classic.
fucking loved that shit. So if she pulls it off even half as good, which it seems like she's doing it in the comedic fashion that it deserves, and is doing well at it. Like okay, I'll let her run with it and see what happens and try to enjoy it because it's kind of funny that they were like, we're gonna escort Harley Cameron out of the building, and then she shows back up with hologram's mascot. Is like, oh no, I'm Harley Graham. Like
And then she's doing this like robot voice thing.
yeah, I I thought it was
Oh,
funny. Now I'm
she's
curious as to what you thought I was going to apologize about.
I will save that for next week.
Oh, all right.
I'll save that for next week's Call in the Ring segment.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm curious even more. How dare you put me in such suspense?
Oh no, building suspense for next week's show. What am I, a
A
content
professional or
creator?
something?
Goodness gracious.
How dare you be professional?
Well,
Um, okay,
it's about
so
time I got
there's
there. Yeah.
so my dear listeners, you and I are all in suspense as to what
Yeah.
this now is because now I'm like, what could he possibly want me to apologize for? Because I mean, I will say this, and Adam's heard it from me a million times, but none of you have got to hear this yet. But I am an asshole in this equation between the two of us. I am
Yeah.
the asshole totally. Adam is a nice, wonderful, complete white meat baby face.
I wouldn't go that far.
And no, you don't even give me that. Adam is like one of the legitimate nicest people I've ever met in my life, and I've met thousands of people. Adam is by far one of the nicest people I know. I am way big of an asshole to be like to even have a friend this nice. Um, so Adam is a total white meat baby face to my total heel. I am an asshole, but I'm his asshole. So please do not come for Adam, lest ye come for me. So
I'm glad I have. I have a heater.
but yeah, so Adam's got a heater. But yeah, now I'm like, what does Adam
Oh,
want
we'll
me to
we'll talk about it.
apologize for? Okay,
We'll talk about it.
all right,
But we'll save that for next week. This is the
yeah.
rare week where I actually have. Uh, so okay, well let's go right to it.